The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
Stan Collymore! Oh, yes!
Telling it as it is.
Instead of tweeting and putting on Instagram that Collymore's this and Collymore's that, come and tell us.
No holes barred.
Go on, Stan, make it epic!
Pure, unadulterated Collymore.
And Stan Collymore strikes.
Hello there, I'm John Hartson, and listen to The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a man I have a lot of respect for. I love his opinions on football, and as a latter-day Celtic man, it's fair to say, I understand the Celtic culture now in the last 5 or 6 years. Big Celtic fan. Is John Hartson is here. John, great to have you on. I want to talk to you about Wales first, because we're in an international break. And it's been a difficult summer for Wales in terms of progress. We remember, European Championships recently, where Wales were competitive, getting bodies behind the ball, Gareth Bale hitting on the counter-attack, a very, very good team. Ryan Giggs has obviously taken over from Chris Coleman. Where are we at the moment with the Welsh national team ahead of a huge game over the weekend against Azerbaijan?
Well, first of all, Ryan Giggs in this campaign, the Euros 2020, which of course are in our country. So it's a very big tournament. I think Wales have got a tremendous group of players, Stan. They really, really have. They've got a fantastic blend of youth, experience. You look at Ashley Williams, a big loss this weekend. Ryan Giggs have left him out of the squad because he's currently not playing regular. He's doing an intensive fitness program. I spoke to Ash, and he's getting himself super fit. Once he starts playing for Bristol City, Ryan's left the door open for him. Again, Aaron Ramsey's not available this weekend. But if you look at our young players, you look at the likes of Joe Rodon, which will probably make his debut, Swansea City centre-half, Swansea top of the league, played 6-1-5 this season, flying. And then you've got the likes of Chris Mepham, who's at Bournemouth, the likes of Harry Wilson, who's flying for
superb
for
free
Bournemouth.
kick of the week against Man City.
Dave Brooks, Dan James, who's gone to Manchester United. So the front three tonight will be Harry Wilson, Dan James, and Gareth Bale. So we've got the luxury of, we've got wonderful pace in the team.
Will that change the way that Wales play? Because obviously in recent big tournaments, and I suppose that the last Euros in France were symptomatic of it, is that the perception was get bodies behind the ball and then win it and give it to Gareth Bale and they'll do something special. You don't need to do that anymore.
We played three at the back, which allows you to come out. It's easier to come out and get and move up the park with three, I feel. But we won't play three tonight. We'll play with a flat back four. And basically we play through the lines. We get the ball into the midfield. They can all play. Joe Allen can play. Andy King could play. Who else will play tonight? The boy Matt Smith, who's a Man City player, is on loan at QPR. Very good footballer. So they play through the lines, and then obviously it goes without saying, with Gareth Bale, we stand a much more better chance of winning. He's a world-class player. He's somebody that Scotland haven't got. He's somebody that Republic of Ireland haven't got.
He's arguably somebody England haven't got in terms of being able to do what he does. I know people say Sterling and Rashford and something, but you're talking about genuine world class that delivers on the world class stage.
And I think it's a great time. I would love to be manager of Wales now. I think Ryan Giggs, he's blessed with that group of players. I think I think he can nurture them. He can put his own stamp on the team, his own philosophy, if you like. He's got a blank sheet, and I don't think, even if they don't qualify, I don't think there'll be any massive noises in terms of the fans wanting Ryan Giggs' head.
So where will the expectation come? Because if they've got a great group of young players that you've mentioned, when is the expectation of, well, okay, they're young, but now it's time to get us to a World Cup. Now it's time to get us to a Euros.
Well, I think there's always expectation, but, especially after the Euros now. But I don't think in terms of there won't be any massive decisions made. If Ryan Giggs doesn't qualify, doesn't take this team to the Euros 2020, he'll get another campaign. I'm absolutely sure of that. He'll get the World Cup in Doha in 2022. I think they'll stay with him. I don't think Wales are in the business of sacking managers. You look at Bobby Gould at 5 years, Sparky, who I played with consistently when I played with Giggs, Hartson, Bellamy. That was our front three. Mark Hughes had 5 or 6 years. John Toshak had the same. Gary Speed, God rest his soul, was doing great things with Wales. Chris Coleman had the best part of 4 or 5 years. So I think Ryan will have time. And then, of course, we'll be expected to qualify for the World Cup. If we don't, we still got an outside chance of this one, but we have to win on Friday. Our next 2 games then in October will be Slovakia away, which will be tough, Croatia home. So we're probably going to have to go through this campaign, another 5 or 6 games, possibly only losing 1 more.
Can you do it?
It's a tough ask. It's a tough ask, Stan, because of the quality of the group. You got the likes of Croatia, which will probably win
World
the
Cup
group.
World Cup finalists.
Yeah, but we're capable. I think we're capable if we can put a run together.
Right, that's Wales done and dusted. I want to talk to you about the whole aim of what this podcast is. We've spoken to Jurgen Klopp, Gary Neville, Heskey, is... I think I'm in a good position, having had a long career and ups and downs. I don't think that we all talk about football as pundits and analyse games, and that's what we're asked to do. Talk about Man United, talk about Liverpool, talk about Wales, England, whatever. But not many people get an insight into professional football life. It's bonkers, it's mad. There's no rule book that says page 6, this is what to do when you do this. So because of your 2 things stick out. One, your experience of going south of the border from England to Scotland, becoming a Celtic legend at a huge club that I particularly am fascinated about. Your connection with the Celtic supporters. You've got a "You'll Never Walk Alone" tat, haven't you? There you go.
There somewhere.
There it is. The hoops. "You'll Never Walk Alone," shared with Liverpool, of course. And obviously illness. I have had well-documented mental health issues right the way through my career. And beyond my career. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, how do professional footballers deal with physical illness? How do they deal with mental illness, mental health issues? So I want to come to that. But firstly, Celtic. What was the background leading up to you going south of the border to Celtic and Martin O'Neill?
Well, first and foremost, I failed a medical at Rangers in the year 2000. Dick Advocat, they were paying 6.5 million for me, and I was signing on the same day as Ronald de Boer. So I flew up from Cardiff. I was on Wales international duty. A telegram came through to the hotel. Mark Hughes said to me, "John, good luck." So as far as I was concerned, I was signing for one of the biggest clubs in Great Britain, which was Rangers. Dick Advocat, as I said, the Dutch manager was the manager at the time. And I flew up into David Murray's private jet, sent it down to Cardiff, picked me up. So I'm walking down the side of the pitch at Ibrox. I'm signing for Rangers. And Ronald de Boer is in the centre circle with the Rangers flag. And I've shouted, "Ronnie, I'll be with you in a minute. Give me 2 minutes. I'll just sort my bits out. I'll be out with you." He said, "Brilliant, John." So I walk in the Rangers dressing room. Al Betts is there. Konchalskis is there. And they take me through to the medical room. And the boys are going, "John, different. That's just what we need. We lost Mark Hateley 2 or 3 seasons ago.
Yeah.
You're just what we need. A big centre forward, a focal point, someone that we can play into, get hold of him.
Hold it up, reliable.
Runners off you. Do you know what I mean? You'll back in all day. You won't move outside of that 18-yard line. Do you know what I mean? You'll master that Alan Shearer that he was great at within them boxes, Alan. So I thought, great. So I go off to the hospital, I do a medical, and I come back, and there's a 5-year contract there. And the big Dutch doctor, who Advocat's second in command, if you like, came in and he said, "There's something showed up on your knee. Unfortunately, we can't go ahead with the deal." So I was naturally disappointed. I was signing for Glasgow Rangers. So
what do you do at that point? Do you panic? Do you think, shit, I've what's gone on?
I'd already failed 3 medicals, Stan. I failed a medical at Spurs under George Graham. I failed a medical at Charlton with Alan Kirbysley. So I'm starting to doubt now whether I'm ever going to pass a medical.
But it doesn't ultimately matter. Again, giving insight into our viewers and listeners is that sometimes the manager will go, it doesn't matter, you've just played 30 games that season, we're going to take you anyway.
Yes.
So,
well, that's what happened with Celtic, because I think if you scanned everybody's sort of medical records, now an operation on your knee when you were 19, or you'd missed a 2 weeks training.
Well, Stephen Gerrard notoriously has got one leg slightly longer than the other.
Well, there we go. And if you particularly scan goalkeepers' backs, they're
Yes.
all over the place because they're diving around everywhere. So it was a very stringent medical. I think if it was for 150 grand, Stan, or 200 grand, they'd have just gone, just do the deal. but it was the best part of a £10 million investment for Rangers.
So you've failed the medical. What happened next?
Failed the medical. I come home, and then I'm at Coventry. I'm with Gordon Strachan at the time. So we go up to St Andrews, the university. We train at the dorms. Gordon's like, get a good pre-season under your belt. So he's come up the back of the bus one particular day after training. I think we've been over on the sand dunes of St Andrews because Gordon was old school. This is what Fergie used
was
to
Gary
do.
Pendry with him?
Gary was with him.
Gary was. I was an apprentice at Walsall, and Gary Pendry was there, and he was hardcore. Then he'd run you around the
great
track.
Sessions
and
on Gary over the hurdles.
Yes,
and everything.
yes, old school.
So you've got to be fit to play in Gordon's teams because Gordon played till he was 39, and the emphasis on being fit and everything
Absolutely, yeah.
was really important to Gordon.
Apparently, bananas were his big thing late on in his career.
Bananas,
He swore by banana.
So we're up in St Andrews, and we do a tough session, and the lads are getting off the bus. We go back to the student dorms where we were staying. It was a real proper tough. There was a small little TV in these student places, and a small single bed. There was nothing sky.
No pro luxuries.
There was none of that. Gordon was into all that old scum. We're going to work. We're here to work. 2 sessions a day. You'll have your food. You'll have your water. Everybody up. We train. We work hard. And he was a fantastic coach. I just have to say that for Strack. So he comes to the back of the bus. We're getting off the bus after training, and I'm still on the back of the bus. I'm dying. My face is all red. I hated pre-season, right? Hated running, full stop.
Strikers notoriously hate running. We're always with the goalkeepers at the back.
Always with the goalkeepers. Then I was with Joe Corrigan at one stage. Was
Big Joe's at Liverpool with Big Joe. Man City
coach.
legend. Again, Shilton. Clements used to change the England duties, and if they two didn't, Joe Corrigan would come in.
I remember Brian Robertson beat me on a 12-minute once because Robbo kept them. But although Robbo, it's common knowledge that Brian enjoyed the lager or two, but he was still very fit. He could still run. He was a natural. He had great lungs, Stan. And but anyway, we go, and Gordon comes to the back of the bus. He says, "Somebody there to talk to you," and he hands me his phone. And it's Martin ONeill. He says, "How you doing, John?" I said, "Oh, great, Martin. How's things?" He said, "Oh, good," he said. "Look," he said, "you're in St Andrews all week." He says, "I'm coming up on Thursday." He says, "I'm going to sign you." I went, "You what?" He said, "I'm going to sign you." He said, "I've watched you for a while. I've spoken to Terry Burton at Wimbledon. You do everything asked of you. You're doing all the striking. You're doing all the short little drills. You're training every day. Your attitude's great." He said, "Unless you've got a hole in your heart, I'm going to sign you." So that was a huge relief to me. And true to his word, Martin turned up on a Thursday, took me back in a minibus that he was with a couple of the people that sort out all the admin and the contracts and everything. And all of a sudden, by the Friday, I was a Celtic player.
So how does this work? Where you've agreed to sign for Rangers, you've walked down the side of the pitch. You've seen Ronald de Boer, you've got in the dressing room the picture of the Queen. Yeah. You then signed for Celtic. Were you aware before you went up there that how big this rivalry, how big these two clubs and what you were embarking upon?
Well, I knew they were big clubs, Stan, but nothing can prepare you for the volume of the size of Celtic. And of course Rangers, who are the Queen's club. The two of them, Stan, I can't go anywhere in the world today. I could go to Dubai, I could go to Bermuda, I could go to a caravan park with my kids in the summer where I used to go as a kid with my mum and dad. And the kids can chase Barney around the stage all night. And me and my wife, a few years ago, I'm not a bet for 8 years, have a game of bingo and we have a laugh, old school, with friends of ours, without bumping into a Celtic fan. I can't move. They're everywhere. And of course, you'd have to say the same for Rangers. So the day that I signed with Steve Guppy. Gups, nice little winger.
Yes, it was at Leicester with Gupster. Yeah, of course, Martin then took on when John Robertson sort of eased out of football. Gups took a more central role with
That's
Steve
right,
Walford.
He's gone into the coaching. Martin's looked after him as well, Republic of Ireland and Aston Villa, I think, as well. Gups followed
So
Martin.
when did you realise how big Celtic were? What was there a moment in the first 2 or 3 weeks where the demands on you...
Well, it was the day I signed. It was the day I signed because there was 5,000 fans outside the stadium. And I thought to myself, wow, this is incredible. Now, I'd signed for Arsenal. I'd signed for West Ham. I'd signed for Wimbledon. I'd signed for good Premier League teams. West Ham is a big club. Arsenal is the biggest club in London, in my opinion. Might not be the richest, but it's the biggest fan base. And there's nothing that can compare you for that. And then when he walked down that pitch for the first time and there's 60,000, adoring fans and the noise, because I don't know if you've ever played at Celtic Park.
I never. That's one of my great regrets.
It's a bowl. There's no gaps. It's 2 tiers and it's a bowl. It's a proper stadium, and the noise level. And if you ask the great European players, the Del Pieros and the Messis, and they still love going to Celtic Park. And they'll tell you themselves, I've seen this in quotes of different people, that Celtic Park's the best place to play in the world because of that noise level. And the fans create that. Them European nights in the East End of Glasgow.
I did a radio commentary, and it was Celtic against Man United, about 2008, 2009. And I'd never... The expensive seats were bouncing up and down. There were people in the corporate areas kind of jumping up and down, and I'd never heard noise like it.
No.
Martin O'Neill, strangely, roughly at the same time I was at Leicester, and I was gutted that Martin O'Neill left. And I remember being sat in a cafe in New York and getting a message. The season had ended. I'd had a broken leg. I could have just nicked into the last game of the season. I didn't. Broke my leg in a Leicester against Derby game. And didn't know Martin was going. I was looking forward to the next season with Martin O'Neill, best manager that I'd played for. And I had a message from somebody at Leicester saying Martin's gone to Celtic. So I remember sending him a message, and he's notorious in terms of not...
I thought you were going to say I had a message off Martin.
No,
I was going to say,
you never get a message.
You're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, you never get
a...
Martin O'Neill, just to let everybody know, you know when you call people up and it's like, sorry, this mailbox is full, that's Martin O'Neill. He never replies, he never answers messages. So anyway, somebody said Martin's gone, and I was genuinely gutted, because I was like, I finally found a manager that I really enjoy playing for. I love Steve Wolford, his assistant. I love John Robertson. So a couple of months later, I had a chat with him, and he said, let's meet at a hotel. So we met in a hotel in Berkshire, and he said... I've got Hartson, I want to play you with him. I was like, fucking hell, happy days.
Is that right?
And he said, leave it with me. And I didn't hear back from him. And then he got back to me. And the perception was, because there was a lot going on in my life at that time off the field, that I'd be trouble up in Glasgow. And that's probably would have been the case, to be perfectly honest.
Well, if you had trouble, that's a place to find it.
It is, particularly in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
How did you find Martin O'Neill? And tell us briefly about his backroom staff, because they're very special people.
Well, they are. And Steve Wolford, as you know, generally... He takes the training sessions, and it's very short, it's sharp, it's enjoyable.
Come on, let's get to the pub.
Yeah, one of them, yeah. But
half an hour, let's go.
Celtic has a fantastic state-of-the-art gym under one of the stands at Celtic Park. So if you wanted to do more, Martin, you know how he works, he almost said, if you feel a little bit lacking in fitness, get yourself in that gym. Make sure you're right. He never looked over you, but he watched you on the pitch and things like that. And generally, Stan, he left it to you, Martin. He left it to you to keep the shirt. You know, the fact that you were in the team and he picked you, you almost felt it was a privilege.
Because there was no matiness about him. He was quite brooding and quite standoffish.
Hardly ever. I'm not just saying this in a derogatory way, but he wouldn't spend an awful lot of time on the training ground.
Yeah.
He'd leave it to,
and he'd come out late.
Yeah, he'd leave it to John Robertson, who was a wonder player, greatest ever player, and it was always Clough. It was always stories. They sit on the bus and they tell us stories. I know more about playing Clough now than I do about Martin O'Neill. All the stories that I heard, and they loved him. They worshipped Clough. So Steve Wolford took the most of the training, but Martin, don't be fooled by he didn't know how you trained. If you'd had a bit of a stroll up or had come in and you smelling a lager one morning, it's all going back to Martin. He knows everything, and you'd get a call. You'd get a call in to see him. He'd say, "Hey, come on." But he was great to play for me, because I'd failed them medicals as well, and he put his trust in me. And he always said, I came back with 110 goals for Celtic. And he'd always said to me, he said to me once, he said, you're the best £6 million, John, I've ever spent on a player.
Which is praise indeed, bearing in mind that...
Some of the players that he'd signed, and he said to me, value for money. He said, you missed a year, you had 2 back operations, you were out for 9 months. He said, but value for money, he said, I can count on you for a goal. He said, on a training ground, he says, you weren't the greatest trainer. He said, but you give me everything.
Delivered.
And that's what he said. And we had a great relation. And I actually know Martin now, Stan, better than when I played under him. because he doesn't really let you in too
Yeah.
much. You know, you'd be walking down the corridor one day, and it's just his way of managing. You know, everybody's different. And one day he'll stop you in the car and say, "How you doing, John? Are you looking well?" He said, "How's the family? Good. Wife, kids? Got the schools, everything sorted with the school and that? Yeah. Good, nice house. Fantastic, son. Well done." Next day,
He'd blank you.
Blank you. And you're thinking, you're actually waiting for a
That's pure
morning.
Clough though, isn't
but
it?
he knows you're there.
Yes.
But it's like, I don't know what, he doesn't want to let you in. There's that factor. And I mentioned it on the debate last night about Ollie at the minute. It's like Sir Alex Ferguson. Now, I know everybody's not got that presence of Sir Alex or Martin O'Neill, but it's like if we conceded in the 44th minute, we're all looking around thinking, I hope he don't dig me out. You'd be petrified to go into that because you feel as if you'd let him down. I'm not too sure that's going on at Man United. I don't think Ollie's got that fear factor, which I think you need at a big
Do you
club.
think it's changed? I mean, very briefly, in terms of management now, one of the things that I went to Forest about a month ago, it was the launch of the new EFL season, and I sort of went around and chatted to some of the people at Forest, and they said they loved Martin. Roy Keane was obviously there, and Roy Keane before the season started said,
Yes.
"I'm out." But the suggestion was that the players didn't like the way that Martin dealt with them.
Yeah.
Bit old school. Do you think old school management now doesn't have a place, or do you think that modern players are too soft, or is it somewhere in between?
I think it's going away. I think if you look at Sam Allardyce, very similar to Martin O'Neill. They tell me Sir Alex Ferguson wasn't out on the training ground too often. I speak to Ryan Giggs all the time. It's definitely changed, Stan. Managers now, literally, not even a lot of them will take a session. A lot of them do, a lot of them don't. They leave it up now to the coaches and the sports science guys. Sports science take all the warm-ups.
Yeah.
They take
Get
all,
them working with
they
the
take
resistance
all the
bands and
injections.
the mats are out.
There's a heart monitor on these players every single day, Stan. They tape the training sessions. After dinner, they go into a room and they watch the training session. They set up different formations, 4-4-2, 4-3-3. They look at certain players. It's changed tenfold. And I think a lot of that is for the good. But I do think there's a place for, it's like saying there's still room for an old-fashioned centre forward.
Of course,
or
strike partnerships.
Or strike partnerships. And I still think there's room for a Martin O'Neill because he was very successful doing it the way he wanted to do it. So I can't criticise that because he had success at Wickham, he had great success at Leicester, he had success at the Republic of Ireland, and I thought he was...
Well, at Villa he did. I mean,
He had Villa.
3-6 finishes.
Absolutely. Wembley's and all this. Before he went there, they were third from bottom under David O'Leary, by the way. He picked Aston Villa up from his knees. And, of course, you know about Celtic. So it worked for Martin, but I think it's absolutely changed now 100-fold.
A couple of quick ones on Celtic. I watch the recent sort of Glasgow Derby, it's called now. They're trying to get away from the old firm title. What's the week like leading up to arguably the world's biggest derby? What's it like getting in your car after training on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you've got a game on a Saturday or a Sunday, you go to the petrol station, you go to the supermarket, do you keep out the way? What's it like on the match day? What's the feeling around a derby like from a player's perspective?
Incredible, Stan. And I think you're reminded everywhere you go, whether it's the school gates with the kids, the parents. Big one this weekend. We've got to win this. We've got to win this. All this stuff. You go in the local garage, a car flies past. They're either giving you the V signs or whatever signs they want to give you, or they're shouting, "Big John legend, come on this weekend." You can't go anywhere because Glasgow's a goldfish bowl. It's a divided city, Stan.
So do the players live? Because I always heard the players lived either Edinburgh or.
Well, no, Lenny lives in the West End, which is a nice affluent part of Glasgow. Martin lived in the West End. Some of the lads might live out in Stirling or Doon or Bridge of Allen. There's some beautiful outskirts in the country of Glasgow. Some of the lads choose to live in the West End, but I think the ones who are the single lads, they tend to go for the 2 or 3 bedroom flats because they're at that age where, they're still doing the nightclubs and the wine bars. But I think the ones who come when they're 26, 27 with a wife and kids and families, they generally go for a house.
Do players from either club mix? Is it an impossibility, or could you see a Rangers player a week before the derby, or even just during the season, and have a drink with him? Or is it just a no-no?
It wouldn't be advisable to meet up. Say, for instance, I knew Barry Ferg. I know Barry really well. Now, Barry's a good lad. He's a friend of mine. Kenny Miller, who I do a lot of the BT Sports stuff with, because they tend, when they do the Europa League games and Rangers are on 6 o'clock and Celtic are on at 8 o'clock, they've got to mix the studio.
Yes.
Otherwise, they get it. The producers want to mix the studio.
But the difference is, when you finished as a pro, everybody's mates again.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in the midst of battle where John Hartson is about to score his umpteenth goal against Rangers.
If I'm playing against Ryan Giggs for West Ham at Old Trafford, we did it several times, I'm having 5 minutes with Giggs on the halfway line before we kick off. You're looking forward to a couple of weeks, we meet up, we'll have a drink in Cardiff, what are you doing, how are you getting there? You're getting there 2 days early, we'll bring the clubs, we're having a chat. There's none of that goes on. You almost detest them players walking down the tunnel. You know, this is for the fans. This game.
How does it feel? The bell rings in the dressing room. You've got hoops on. They've got blue on. Yeah. Two of the world's most famous clubs. You come side by side. Is it more about your ability to keep a lid on things? Because I would imagine the temptation is to just go flying off all over the place.
Yeah, well, you've got it, because you know yourself, Martin, discipline. He was a stickler for discipline. Clough was the same. Martin used to say to us, look, we can't win with 10 men. We cannot win with 10 men. It's hard enough to win with 11 men at Ibrox. You know, you've got to have a system, you've got to be all in sync, we've got to work, we've got to do what we do best. What Martin used to say to me before every game, John, when the ball comes into you today, right, don't have 10,000 things in your mind. Don't think, flick it. You tell me this in front of all the lads. Every week you tell me the same thing. He said, do me a favour, put your foot on the ball, stick your big backside into the centre half, hold it up, allow us to come up the pitch, give us a little breather, right?
Hallelujah.
And if you can, just for me today, give it to a green and white shirt. And then get your stuff in the box. No, I knew I had to do more. I knew I had to get across.
But it's very clever... simple management, is it? Because if you can do that and get confidence from doing that in your first two or three touches, everything else will come.
He'd say to Henrik, Henrik, I can't teach you how to score a goal. He'd say, Chris, how do I teach you when the ball's in the air to Chris Sutton, give the centre half a nudge and bring it down on that barrel chest, which he was brilliant at. You know, when the ball's in the air, the referee's looking at the ball, he's nudging the centre half. It's clever. You know, it's anticipating down. Gosh, Chris was brilliant. A great front man, Chris Sutton. Probably better with Henrik than what I was, because I was more of a goal scorer. I wanted to go near post, because when I was with Arsenal and playing with righty, I'm going back post, because righty, I'm knocking things back.
Righty go sharp, near post.
But when I'm playing, I want to score, because I was a goal scorer. Chris was happy to be the
bringing other people into play,
man, and he was brilliant, very, very unselfish, and a top centre forward as well. He won the Golden Boot, Chris Sutton, in the Premier League. But going back to your original question, you're in that tunnel, and you don't make a mistake, don't get sent off, and you just want to win the game.
Are you nervous?
Oh, you're nervous. You got butterflies. Naturally, I'd be lying if I said I was. I think it's good to have a few nerves. I think that's a bit of anxiety, a bit of nerves. You want to get out there. You want to get your first touch. For me, I wanted to just go and get across the centre half and smash him, pop my marker down. If I'm playing, I'm taking a 1, 2, 3. I'm coming across him. And I know I'm sticking my knee in his hip. I'm getting so up high and I'm just battering him and he's on the floor and I'm looking over him. I'm thinking, it's 1-0 here. I've got him. He's petrified. And it was Amoruso, it was Craig Moore. They had some good players. Stefan Kloss in goal, they had Barry Ferguson, Avaladze, De Boer. So when we were dominating in that team, which was a great team, Rangers also had a good side. You know, they also had good players, internationals. But you dare not lose, Stan. If you lose...
What's it feel like the days after?
Oh, you don't want to get your head off the pillow. You feel as if you've let everybody down. It's for the fans, and I think, you know, you're going into the school and fans are a little bit offish and they're not, whereas if you win, you're jumping out of bed because everybody feels it. The kit man at Celtic Park, the tea lady, you know, the girls that are doing all the kit and putting everything out, your boots, the apprentices. Everybody feels it, from the man on the gate, the security guy when he's opening the gate to let you into Celtic Park in the morning. You're coming in Monday and he's like, yes, yesterday, yes. And if you lose it, everybody's down. Do you know what I mean?
Do you feel then the final question on Celtic is that the elephant in the room is that Rangers is an expression of Britishness. You mentioned the Queen's 11. I understand the history because I grew up and a mate of mine was a massive Rangers fan. There's a lot of Celtic fans in because it's a big mining town, and a lot of Geordies came down, a lot of Scots came down. And the perception of Celtic is the diaspora, the Irish diaspora. Do you ever feel that you're not just playing for a football club, but you are representing a community? And does it blur the lines between I'm just a footballer, I'm just a sportsman, and getting carried away with what being a Celtic man is or being a Rangers man is?
You've got to be careful, because I listened to Terry Butcher a couple of years ago, and Terry said when he was captain of Rangers, he got involved with all the what's the word? Sectarianism.
Yes.
Stuff. And in the dressing room after, they had a lot of Rangers men in there. Rangers men, what you call Graham Souness, what you call Ali McCoist, what you call Ian,
that were imbued in the
Ian
Rangers
Ferguson,
culture.
Ian Durrant.
And of course, Protestantism and Britishness.
Grew up
yes.
in Rangers parents, Rangers background, Rangers football club. And then you had one or two, not so much in the Rangers end, but for me, I'm perceived as just a normal, ordinary guy. I'm not religious. I'm not a Protestant, and I'm not a Catholic. I'm from South Wales, and I never knew anything about it. I know a lot more about it now, having played 5 years in the city. But Terry Butcher said a great story once, and it really, really stuck with me. He basically said he'd come up, he'd had no links with either club, but he was England captain,
yes,
Rangers captain. And he said in the dressing room, we'd all get in the bath after wins, and I'd be singing all the Rangers
Sashing
songs,
it up,
all this sort of stuff. And he said, now I look back on that, and I think to myself, what on earth was I doing? What on earth was I doing? So it's so easy to get dragged into it.
So therefore, is it a responsibility of Celtic and Rangers players to move things on to a point whereby 50 years, 60 years, 10 years, hopefully in short order, to move away from it?
I don't
this
know
is the one
if
where you play for, if you're playing Turkey and you play for Besiktas or Galatasaray, if you're playing some of the other big derbies around the world where there are political elements to it, is it a player's responsibility to say, I'm just here to play football? Is it a player's responsibility to say, I'm going to embrace what Celtic is about or what Rangers is about or whatever it is? Or is it a responsibility to say we want to we don't want politics anywhere near or sectarianism anywhere near the sport? Let's use our voice as a great footballer, as a great goal scorer, as a great defender to move the debate.
I think that would be ideal. That would be a situation that would be fantastic. I think if there's no sectarianism, if there was no religious chants during games, because it's got both clubs into trouble. You know, Rangers last week, Celtic have been warned several times, fined as a club for singing unnecessary songs, unsavoury songs. And I think in an ideal world, if that was to go away, then that would be in an ideal world. I'm not too sure personally whether that would ever really clear up. I think there's too many people that actually...
And this isn't just a football issue. This it's like Brexit. It's like people say racism. This is a societal issue.
Yeah, I'm a bit, I'm a bit wary about talking because I've never really got into the religious side of it.
You don't have to.
And there's people that know a lot more than I do. Look at Neil Lennon. He's an Irish Catholic from Lurgan. He grew up in Northern Ireland. He had death threats. He had to stop playing for his country. So you've got that with Neil. You have players at Rangers who've real Rangers men live in Northern Ireland, their families. So there's people that know a lot more about the history and everything else about it. But I was always told, Ian Dowie told me once, who was a big sort of Orange man, big Northern Ireland Rangers fan, Northern Ireland record goal scorer down, one of my good mates. He said, John, when you go to Northern Ireland, I'll tell you one thing, he said, just be careful, because you could be standing, having a picture, because they love taking photos. You're idolised.
I've been over with Liverpool, played at Windsor Park.
Worshipped, Stan, with Celtic and Rangers, two sides of Belfast. And you got the Shankill Road and you got the Falls Road, Celtic, Rangers, everything else. He said, when people take a picture of you, he said, it might look very innocent to you, but somebody might just come in the background and just hold a little flag up. And all of a sudden, that picture of the flag is
the moment.
It's something that happened 30 years ago when something was disastrous for certain fans.
One of the communities. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that picture is out there on social media.
So are you careful of that now? Because we played in an age pretty much where there was no social media. Are you aware that if somebody comes up and wants a picture with you,
I'm like that. No, I'm like that. Just, but a lot of people, I would say 99 people out of 100 won't do it. But there's always that risk element that somebody wants to make a name for himself. Somebody wants to just cause that little bit of controversy for you. You know what it's like. They're everywhere, Stan.
Yes.
You could go and do a dinner tomorrow night. There's 300 people there. Everybody is fantastic. They listen. They give you respect. And there'll be one idiot in
there is always one shouting from the back.
They'll shout something, and all of a sudden it's like, what's going on?
Right. I want to ask you to bottle one moment at Celtic that you want to take with you forever. You can open it whenever you like. The feeling of that moment, what would it be?
I think it would have to be the goal at Anfield in the quarter-final of the UEFA Cup. We'd got a 1-1 at Celtic Park. Henrik had got our goal. It's the quarter-final.
Two massive clubs. England, Scotland.
Clubs. Never walk alone. Liverpool must have had 10, 15,000. You get more, obviously, in the cup competitions. And that you'll never walk alone, Stan. That moment when it's going and the flags are up, it's just like, it just goosebumps on my neck now, thinking about it. And then when we went to Anfield the following Thursday, we're 1-1 from the first leg. Heskey, Henrik Larsson, 1-1, level-ish game. So we go to Anfield, we've got to score. Otherwise we're out. They've got the away goal. And I scored a goal in the 72nd minute, and I run to the Celtic fans. As you come out of the tunnel at Anfield, they were
to the left.
They were in the bottom and the top.
The Anfield Road end.
Yeah, you got the Kop, obviously.
To the right.
And Liverpool, we beat them 2-0. Gerard Houlier's Liverpool.
Good team. It was a precursor to the Champions
League. It was Owen and Heskey. It was Carragher and Hippier, Murphy. I remember it as if it was yesterday. And we were 1-0 up. Tom would put us in front just on half-time. Great time to score. So we go in 1-0. We come out and it's nip and tuck. They either get the equaliser, we score and it's 2-0. It's game over. And I scored probably I never got many goals outside the box, but I smashed it from 25 yards, flew in the top corner past Jerzy Dudek, and I've run to the Celtic fans. And that for me is a moment that, and I went on the television afterwards and I told everybody at home I was an Ian Rush fan, I was a Liverpool fan. So to have done that, and it was just, Steven Gerrard gets 10 a season. But, most people you scored some great goals, Stan.
I did.
Most players, they get one a lifetime in terms of that absolute...
Comes off the foot,
couldn't have
flies in.
Two goalkeepers wouldn't have stopped it. Do you know what I mean? It just flew in. And it was the moment, it was 2-0, we'd won. Martin's jump, if you see the shots now on the goal, Martin ONeill jumps up. We're in the semi-final of the UEFA Cup. So it was a great moment for everybody. We've gone to Anfield and we've beat Liverpool on a European night, under the lights, 4 European Cups at the time. They've since won 5 and 6. Historically a wonderful European team. They get it done. They know how to get it done. They beat everybody at Anfield. And I remember vividly walking off that night, celebrating, and the stadium was full. The Liverpool fans clapped us off that night.
Brilliant.
Because of the way that we'd performed. And we'd beat a very good Liverpool team. The year before, or 2 years before maybe it was, they beat Alaves. They won the UEFA Cup.
Heskey, he's joining me. He's presenting the show for the next 4 weeks.
So that was the one. But Stan, there was so many.
They won the treble that year. They won the League Cup, FA Cup and the UEFA Cup.
I scored 11 goals against Rangers in the derbies. I scored in 4 consecutive games, the winning goal. So you get the key to the city, but one half of the city anyway. So they were all great moments, and there's so many of the league titles, walking around Celtic Park with the family, cameras are there, fans are throwing their scarves at you on that sunny, hot May the 25th, playing at Hampden, winning cup finals. But if I had to say one, it would probably be that moment at Liverpool.
Fantastic. I want to talk about cancer because I don't think people talk and use words as they are. I have mental health issues. I've done right the way through my playing career. I've been suicidal 2 or 3 times, nearly took my own life. One of the only illnesses where people do want to take their own life. My sister had cancer of the palate, same as Bobby Robson. She was a chain smoker, 80 a day. It was going to come. and when I was at Southend, a very young lad. So I know about mental health and physical health, and I know that we all get very tetchy about talking and using words like cancer. You've gone through that process. A big, physically strong athlete beat it comfortably, as many other players. Jason Cundy, of course, had testicular cancer.
Jimmy White.
Stan Petroff, I'm talking to next week,
right.
leukemia. Yeah. I'll come to an athlete taking on battles in a second. But I saw an interview recently where you said you were disappointed with yourself that you felt lumps and bumps in your testicles and you didn't do anything. So at the beginning, when did you feel something wasn't right? And from that moment and the clock's ticking, when did you do something about it?
Well, first of all, I had small lumps. I probably would have been at Celtic. I had small lumps on one of my 2 testicles inside my scrotum. And I left them because, little small lumps, they could be cysts, they could be other things. I left them because I was fathering kids, I was scoring goals, I was training every day. Wasn't an issue.
Fit, healthy man,
moving clubs, just living my life. And then I went to West Brom. I signed for Brian Robertson. He signed myself and Kevin Phillips on the same day. Kevin came from Villa. I came down from Celtic. And as I was at West Brom, Robbo got the sack. Tony Mowbray came in. And the lumps seemed to have got a little bit bigger. So they'd gone from like a little nut size on my testicle to like probably the size of a baked bean. Just on one testicle, it was like, and I was a bit worried about it. And so over the years at West Brom, I was only there for about 15 months, but within about the first 8 months at West Brom, it was gradually getting bigger. And I found myself out of the team. Tony Mowbray had said to me that he likes quick, nimble strikers. He loved me at Celtic when he used to come with his Hibs teams to Celtic Park. He used to set up his teams to stop me, blah, blah, blah. But he said, John, I'm really not going to use you. He said, you're 33 or whatever you are. He said, I've got Kevin and I've got Zoltan Gira and I've got Diamansi Kamara. He said, I like players. I like to hit the channels and Kev's terrific, So I said, no problem, and that's fine. He was honest with me, and I found myself in the reserves. I was on big money there. Jeremy Peace put me in the reserves, and I'm playing on a Tuesday night stand at Kidderminster against Bolton reserves. Yeah. And I'm thinking 7 months ago, I was at the Nou Camp scoring for Celtic against Barcelona in the Champions League. So mentally, it started to play. Take its toll on me. I was living in a beautiful house on the Stratford Road in Hockley Heath. I'd settled there. I loved the Midlands. I loved the Midlands people. We used to go down to the Bull Ring and everything else, and Broad Street. Me and my wife, we embraced the Midlands. And I started to put a bit of weight on. And the warm-ups almost became like a fully blown training session to me. I was really struggling.
Yeah,
I was struggling because my head wasn't right. My attitude wasn't right, if I'm being honest with you. I never knuckled down and tried to win my place back. First time ever in my life I'd ever been sort of played second fiddle. Never really sat on the bench either, really. A little small time at Arsenal when I'd Wright and Bergkamp ahead of me, by the way. But and I started going to the pub, a little pub across the road called The Wharf on Stratford Road, and it was a nice little pub. It did carvery on a Sunday, and I just took a bit of a liberty, really. And my wife noticed that I was sleeping a lot, and I'd put a bit of weight on around my chin. And Sarah, my wife, had noticed. And even sometimes when I'd come up to the traffic lights, I'd almost I was just feeling not right. And she noticed something in my demeanour, And I said to her one day, I said, have a look at this. And she felt it, and she went, how long has that been there? I said, about 3 years. She said, you what? She said, go in tomorrow and see the doctor at West Brom. So I went in, and I never went to the doctor. I told her a little lie. I said, look, I've been, but I hadn't gone because I thought, I almost had a feeling that it might be something serious, Were
you scared?
Probably a little bit, yeah. I think so. I'd come home and then I said to my missus, I'd seen the doctor, everything's fine. So I told her a little white lie, as men do. Now, if it had been my wife, she'd have been in there 3 years ago. if women feel anything, or they've
again, I think the public campaigns are more aimed at women in terms of having smears and screening.
Definitely, and there's more. I think there's a bit more support for women's health than men's. I think it's probably seen as more serious, and heart failure and breast cancer and the Heart Foundation.
So when did you go to the doctor?
Well, I didn't, and over time. West Brom released me. They paid me off, and I had a short stint at Norwich for a month, and then I retired. I retired early, Stan. I retired about 33, and I wanted to go back to Wales. I just wanted to go back down. I'd been through quite a not a nice divorce, which they're really not nice divorces. And my eldest two children, Rebecca and Johnny, were in Wales with my first wife. So I go back down to Wales, and then that's when it really started, the headaches. That lump had almost become like a Malteser, and the headaches were just horrendous. So one particular day, I went to the doctor, and my head was literally on the doctor's desk with this headache. Now, the doctor said to me, she said, "I give you sachets for your headache last week, like anti-inflammatories." Yeah, and not antibiotics, just general painkillers, really, anodins or whatever. And she said, we spoke about. So I left the hospital and I went home, and my wife actually went on the computer and went on swine flu, because there's a lot of swine flu around at that time. Headaches, sweats, not sleeping, can't face the light, all these things. And my sister come to see me at home, and she says, "John, I've got to take you to hospital." I'm like, no, I don't go to hospital, I'm fine. She said, "No, come on." She said, "I've got to take you to the hospital." So we jumped in the car, me and my sister, and we go to the hospital. And they literally take me upstairs, and I spent 6 weeks really in the like on the cancer ward, and I'd gone through. They did all the tests and everything else, and that's when I was diagnosed really with the cancer.
But you're here today. You're a big fucking strong Welsh dragon.
When you talk about your kids and your family and stuff like that, you do get emotional, because that all nearly got taken away from me.
Did you feel that being a sportsman and an athlete, and this is the thing that got me through, you're going to get me going in a minute.
Yeah, helped.
I've sat there in a room on my own with a belt round my neck thinking, I just don't want to do this anymore. 2 or 3 times. But the things that have got me through, firstly, your family, the emotional bond you have with your mum, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your kids. But the other thing that really got me through was, I go to the gym a lot. I run. The Leicester physio gave me high intensity sessions to do on a treadmill, and I'll go 3 or 4 times a week. Did you know in your gut, because you were a competitor at the very highest level, that was going to be a massive tool in terms of fighting this?
Definitely, because they were asking me to blow. When I was diagnosed, I had the tests, I had some radiotherapy, I'd had a tracheotomy put in there where I was eating through a tube, and wired up to the machines, everything else. And it's out of your comfort zone, because I'd never been ill. I'd only been in the hospital once or twice after a game or for a medical, couple of stitches and things like that.
And of course, notoriously, for viewers and listeners, as a footballer, you can't really take very much. So if you've got anything like a fever, you're not taking NyQuil or things that they give you paracetamol, and that's pretty much it.
So I'm on a hospital bed, I'm fighting for my life. My kids are there, they're coming to see me. They can't come in to the ward because of risk of infection. it was really. My mum went mad one night because I pulled all the machines out. I'd been on heavy medication. They were giving me like tranquilizers to make like what they give horses to sleep because I couldn't sleep. I was up all night. They were worried about me. I was coughing. I caught pneumonia on the ward, which is big danger because I was having like chemotherapy and that eats up your immune system. I didn't have the immune system to fight back, so I'm in risk of catching any sort of illnesses or coughs, or because the chemotherapy is killing my immune system as well as killing the white shiny cells in my immune system, and it's also killing the red cancer cells, which is doing its job, but it's also killing other parts of your body.
But did you feel this sort of, you hadn't long retired from football, so you're still a very fit guy.
Well,
did you feel in a good position?
Yeah, what it was, Stan, they give you these little tests, and I'd never been a smoker. I'd had the odd cigar, Christmas dude, blah, 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 all that nonsense. But I'd never smoked. I never bought a pack of fags in my life. And I was 33, and they were giving me these tests every Monday morning. The guys would come round and they'd put it on my face, and they'd take me down, and I'd have to blow into this bag, and I used to burst the bag. I was literally bursting the bag. So they knew I had good lungs, and I had good strength, and I had a good heart. I was overpowering on that side of it. But I had 2 big holes in my head where they drilled a screwdriver in there to release the pressure. And I'd had a big, massive piece of my head there operated on. So I was in desperate trouble, really, all because I'd left it too long. Now, if I'd gone 4 or 5 years ago when I first felt them little crumbly, little nut-sized lumps, I'd have probably spent one night in the hospital. They'd have took the infection of the cancer, the tumour, off one of the testicles, like they do with everybody who's diagnosed with testicular cancer. I might have had 1 or 2 sessions of chemotherapy, and that would have been it. But because I allowed it over the 4 years, Stan, to spread. It spread to my lungs and to my brain. So that's what put me in desperate trouble, because of my ignorance of my own health. So
what advice? There'll be lots of young men, fucking hell, I felt this and I've got that, and who cares? Tomorrow never comes. The day after tomorrow never comes. What advice would you give to, and we've all been there, you and I have been there, young, cocky, confident, overconfident young men that feel that there might be something?
Well, I would say do as I say and don't do as I did, Go straight away. You've got to go to the doctors, your local GP. If you feel any lumps at all, they could not be cancerous, but it's very common for men of the ages of 18 to 35, testicular cancer. There's a 97% success rate if you get it early. But the problem that I had, I left it and I ignored it, and I was ignorant of my own health. It's very, very treatable. You can go in. It's still a heavy trauma, because it's cancer. And cancer's not a flu, Stan, or a bug, or a disease, or an illness. Cancer takes good people away from us. Every single day of our lives does cancer. It's a serious thing to happen. And it's the word cancer. It's terrifying, But there's ways. My dad's just come through prostate cancer. He's great. He's running every day. He's fit. He's 68 years of age. And I had it. So what I would say to people watching this show, if you feel any sort of symptoms whatsoever, lumps on your testicles, headaches, putting a bit of weight on, not because of your eating or your drinking, just because you're bloated and things like this, just any signs, you've got to go and get it sorted out. Don't leave it too long, because it could almost cost you your life like it nearly took mine.
John, all it leaves me to say is that a fantastic sit down and chat with you. I'm fascinated about particularly the Celtic angle, because it's such a big football club, and your own personal journey. You look well. Thanks, you're happy. I've loved listening to you and watching you on various radio and television shows.
Vice versa, mate.
And the absolute epitome of somebody that showed strength through adversity and came through the other end. Thank you very much for joining me.
Top man, Stan.